Hi everyone, just wanted to let you know that I recently started a Kickstarter for the physical copy of Mysteries of Dysteria Volume 1. It's been fulfilled now, which is awesome, but if you would still like to donate, you can get different things depending on how much you donate, including a signed copy of the book. Think of it as sort of pre-ordering it, if you will. You can message me on there if you have any questions, and I also made a video talking about the behind-the-scenes stuff about the comic, so I'd recommend to check that out if you're interested. Hello everybody, it's your non-binary pal Gracious Eva here, and this video is based off of a common critique when it comes to fantasy designs, specifically armor designs. You've probably seen this before, but basically it's how double-standard and gendered fantasy armor designs can be, with the guys getting to be all covered up, or even when they're not covered up, it's still fairly practical and bulky and muscular, and the girls basically wearing lingerie that has some bits of metal. Things like this tend to tick me off, especially as an agender non-binary person. Frankly, I think this problem could be solved if we just ban gender normality. Or, these artists and companies that hire these artists and make these concept arts could, learn how to think outside of the cisgendered box. Well, that's all my opinion, right? Well, no, because lots of other people, including gender-conforming cis people, have had problems with this. And so this led me down the thought of, what if the roles were switched? Now, there are lots of people who have made actual armor for girls, and turns out it's fairly easy. All you have to do is make armor and have a character who happens to be a girl, and there. But no one has done the opposite, making impractical armor for guys. Why? Well, one, a lot of people for some reason have a much bigger issue with guys being feminine than girls being masculine, which has a lot of underlying stuff behind and in front of that. And two, a lot of people probably just don't like the concept of impractical armor in the first place. But damn it, I want to do this. So there. Anyway, while making the concept for these guys, I decided to have them be in my pixie-ling species, which are my versions of elves and fairies. And I'll get into the specifics of that later on. And they all have a butterfly motif with a flower theme for their weapons. But alright, that's everything I have to say, so let's get started with the first design. The first character up is the leader of this group. I wanted him to be the sword wielder of the group, and I sadly forgot the names of the butterflies all of them are based on, because I made the mistake of naming them after the flower their weapons were based on, so I'll put the names here in editing. This butterfly was a super pretty, almost iridescent blue with a little bit of purple, and I thought that the color scheme would fit really well here. All three of these guys have different eye masks that are supposed to look like butterflies with the antennae, and yes, I'm aware at how Hollow Knight these look. Okay, you don't have to tell me, I'm aware of it. I wanted this character to have a more extreme silhouette, so I gave him big shoulder arm pads straight from the 80s, an asymmetrical look with one arm having a big sleeve, and a high ponytail because I cannot help myself with those. Actually, now that I'm looking at the design, he's kind of reminding me of my design for Suying, which is funny. I also added these sort of vein-like patterns to parts of his design, as well as the others to look like the ones found on butterfly wings. I also gave him these nice looking boots and a knee accessory that you hardly see because it's covered up by the sword, which is great, and other decorations. I was really excited for the colors here, and I decided to go for these deep blues with a bit of this mauve color in the hair and eyes. I also colored his skin a grayish blue since pixie-lings have unnatural skin colors, and also these little dots that I added all over him. For his sword, I based it off of the Salvia flower and had some Salvia flowers on the hilt of the sword and the sides of the blade. This character's full name is Salvia Kaitora. I think I said those right. And he's definitely a strong leader, but has a hard time allowing others to take charge. He always makes sure that he keeps his team and himself together and is very confident. His design might be my favorite, even though I didn't talk too much about it because there's not much to explain. You can see it with your eyes, but I actually like how all three of these designs look quite a lot. One thing I will say about his design is, as well as the others, is I added these sort of wavy patterns throughout them to sort of look like petals or like butterfly wings, and also some sharper angles, sharper and triangular character designs. If you don't know what that means in terms of character designs, why we use shape language, you can look up some videos about that. Not my video. I made a video about that a while ago. Don't look it up. It's not good. Now, while I let the rest of the speed paint go, I'll explain what this group of knights are. Although they can fight and their weapons are real, they're more of a performative group, sort of like cheerleaders. So yes, these armors are super impractical, but for this situation, it doesn't really matter. However, they also serve as paladins, and if you know what those are, then you know that they probably serve under something, and I'm not telling you what that is. Now for the second character, the butterfly he's based on is right here on screen, and I absolutely loved the black and pink color scheme on his butterfly for absolutely no reason at all. For his design, I wanted it to be super light and nimble since he's the most athletic in the group and also the spear user, so he ended up having the least amount of armor with just some guards on his arms and knees, while the rest is sort of just like this harness design. I did put more detail into his stockings/shoes, having that vein pattern there, but I'm not quite sure if I like how it opens towards the calves. I might change that in post-editing. His hair was definitely fun to line since I wanted it to feel more sharper and angled, and I designed his mask in sort of a similar fashion. Not only are the antennae different for each one, but also the eye shape as well, matching their eyes underneath. His color theme was super fun, of course. I decided to keep his skin a gray color and make the rest of his clothes black with pink accents. And for his hair, I went with a black and pink gradient, with his side hairs being solid pink. I think his whip ended up being my favorite one, and it's based off of an Aster flower. I especially like how the bigger flower looks with the diamond in the middle. This character's full name is Aster. Again, I'm so sorry. I believe I named their last names after the scientific names of all these butterflies, so these are hard to say out loud. But they're last names, so you don't say those nearly as much as the first one anyway. He's more playful and wild than the others. He's super sporty, a little punky, and hates sitting still. He loves getting to do dangerous stunts, but he has a hard time gauging what's super dangerous or not. Now for a little more info about the pixieling culture. Pixelings are very classic medieval fantasy and hardly ever adapt to technology change. The way they view femininity and masculinity is reversed, with the men typically being the feminine ones and the women being the masculine ones. It's actually the same way for the Akkas and Yojais from Haiku's Magical World, if anyone noticed that. And now for the third character. I actually do remember the name of the butterfly this one is based on. It's called the glasswing butterfly, and you can probably tell why. Of course, I wasn't going to pass on this for a character concept. Aside from the transparent parts, the frame of the wings was this dark reddish color, so I kept that in mind when making the rough draft. This character was going to be the archer, so I gave him this shoulder guard thing. I said shoulder twice, don't worry about it. And for some reason, I kept headcanoning this character to be some sort of royal, or at least of high nobility, so I made their clothes a bit more elegant and even added a little tiara. Look at that, that's so cute. This also works well with the theme of fragile glass, and since they're an archer, he really doesn't need to be in the middle of the battlefield anyway. I added some more softer shapes with him, although still keeping some of the more sharper and triangular shape language to match the others. This can be seen most in his mask, where the antennae are more soft and the eyes are a little downturned. The parts that I decided would be see-through were his shoulder guard, the skirt thing, and the tops of his gloves and boots, where I also placed the veiny butterfly pattern. His shoes and gloves are one of my favorite parts of his design, since you'll see later on I did a really cool effect where they actually have the darkest colors of the outfit but fade to be see-through towards this top. Does that make any sense? No, but nothing about these outfits so far have made sense, so I rest my case. And then I also gave him a super long braid, which was fun to draw. For the colors, I went with white, light red, and a grayish red color palette to match with the butterfly and to match with the glass feel, without it just being white or colorless, I guess. The only part that has more saturation in it is his hair, which fades into a more brighter red. The flower his bow and arrow are based on was the anemone. It's here's the text on screen. Flower, which was the easiest flower for me to draw and also ended up being one of the more simpler weapon designs. Although if you look closely, you can see that the ends of both also fade to being transparent. This character's name is on screen. You can read it, but most people call him Nim for short. He's super dramatic and likes to act all regal and sophisticated to a comical degree, but he's also pretty emotional, and it's hard to tell the difference when he's just playing it up or sincerely upset about something. A little more info about pixieling biology. All pixielings have unnatural skin, hair, and eye color, and although they are physically based on butterflies, they are more often named after flowers. They all have those dots on the skin and the pointed ears. Pixielings that are born male have their skin color be darker and their dots be lighter, and pixielings that are born female are the opposite. So yes, even though I wasn't thinking about this while I was working on these designs, this does mean that Nim is trans, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that is all the knight's designs. But wait, those weren't all the designs I made. That's right, I made a secret fourth design, and I'm going to talk about it now. I was actually planning on doing this from the beginning, but this design is the person that these paladins actually work for. Before I talk about them, one more fact about pixielings. Of course, I had to add something special for non-binary pixielings, because I'm not biased at all. If a pixieling discovers they are non-binary or are born intersex, they'll actually go through a metamorphosis in their teen years, which will grant them wings, a little bit of plant magic, and their eyes will change to be one solid color. That's right, non-binary pixielings are the fairy ones. Because of this, they are seen as powerful mages and are granted a much higher status in society. Most are given their own guards to protect them and work under them, which is what the previous trio are meant for. Also to sort of like announce their presence in a very fanciful dance-like way. Now that we have that discussed, this character was super easy to design, but it was a redesign of a character I made before. This was an artwork I made for a TikTok OC challenge, and I've actually drawn them a couple times after that. I already had the basics of their personality and role worked out, so this was a good chance for me to create a full design for them. I decided that their new wings would be based on a monarch butterfly, and at first I played around with the idea that parts of their color scheme could change color to kind of be like a rainbow monarch butterfly, but I just kept it to purple and pink. They actually ended up having a color combo that matched with the previous three: purple/blue, pink, and gray. I don't have much to say about the clothes, since they don't have much clothes, but I did make them a little more ornate and gave them these cool arm guards. One of my favorite things about this design is the hair, specifically the bangs, which I think look really unique. I like the shape that I chose for it. Because this was made for a challenge and was made a while ago, I don't really remember the thought process for the base design, other than I think the skin color was supposed to be the same as your shirt color, which happened to be dark gray at the time, so that's how we get that. Everything else I don't remember. I think the hair color was also supposed to be based on a flower, but I changed that for this one. I gave them these torn bits on their wings, which I also did in their old design. This is because they are a bit older and have done quite a lot. Other than the gray in their hair and the wrinkles around their eyes, a way you can tell when a pixieling is older is by their ears. The older they get, the lower their ears droop. And now for their name. Although this does break the rules of pixielings being named after flowers, I decided to name them Monarch, since it just seemed very fitting. Monarch is a super eccentric person and comes up with all kinds of weird ideas, spells, and inventions. They are definitely the older oddball wizard type, with a bit of a seductive side. The others often really don't get them, but Monarch does treat them well and likes them, so they all work together quite well. And those were all of the designs I made for this video. Let me know what you think of these designs. They were super fun to make. I always like doing these little challenges for myself, and I like to draw them as sort of a lineup because doing lineups are really good, and it also helps me to practice doing lineups for bigger projects of mine, like my comics stuff. Speaking of my comics, you can check those out on Webtoon, as well as physical versions of my comics. Info about that will be linked in the description below, as well as where you can find my artwork and shop and all of that. And I will see you in the next video. And one last thing, the art fight video will be next Sunday. I promise. I will be posted then. Okay. See you in the next video. Bye.